Good morning from the U.S., Lindani, and good evening in South Africa. Um,
Yeah,
Lindani here is a very special guest today because he's our first international guest on the podcast. Episode 5 with Bruno, he was living and working internationally, but still someone from a U.S. Maritime Academy. Lindani here, being from South Africa, he's been learning about maritime since high school. Um, and we had met at Shanghai Maritime getting our master's degrees together, and that's the last time I've seen you after graduating. And you've also crossed paths with Connor here.
And let me just like preface. So this podcast is very interesting because we were talking about who we're gonna bring on as the next guest, right?
yeah,
And Matt's like, oh, I know someone. I think he'd be a great guest, and his name's Lindani. And I was like, wait, I know a Lindani, and then I connected the dots. I forgot that you guys went to Shanghai Maritime together.
yeah,
And the way that I know Lindani was because when I've talked about it before on the podcast, when I went to South Africa as part of our experiential learning at school, we were 14 of us and we were split up in groups of 2, and me and my roommate at the time were paired up with Lindani at the school that he was teaching at in South Africa.
yeah,
Fast forward, I
yeah.
think, when was that? 2018. Fast forward 3
28.
years and here we are.
Yeah,
It's just small world, right? And that everyone, you hear that all the time. Maritime world, small world, because don't burn any bridges because you'll meet them again most likely.
yeah, absolutely, man. Maritime World is a very small one. And I remember when Matt told me that you guys are having a podcast, I was like, wow, that's fantastic. And when he told me that Connor is also going to be part of it, I was like, oh, I know that guy. And I was like, yeah, I remember he told me about him. Yeah, because I mean, we crossed paths when you were here in South Africa together with your schoolmates. I remember I even took you guys for a drive, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah.
I think we drove to one of the shops, and it was fantastic. Yeah, so thanks guys for having me. So excited to be here.
Yeah, of course. And look at this. I still have this. It's on my wall. You can see it. It actually says
Yeah,
U.S. Kid.
wow.
Yeah, it says I have it. It means a lot to me for sure. I mean, that was one of my favorite experiences at school was being able to go to South Africa. So, Fred, if you couldn't read it, it says U.S.
Yeah,
Cadets for Durban Schools. When we got there,
wow.
we were greeted with open arms. Everyone was very excited that we were there, and we were excited to be there as well. We were,
Yeah,
yeah, we were teaching students. We were assisting Lindani teaching some of the maritime courses, and we like presented to their class and stuff. And
yeah,
it was a great experience all around.
mm, yeah. Well, I'm so happy that you guys had a great time here, and I'm so happy, you know, that I've given this opportunity to be able to speak to you again because I really never thought that we're gonna, you know, be in this kind of setup and be able to talk again.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, we're happy to
Yeah.
have you, and you could do this. So yeah, why don't you just go ahead and take us through like from starting off in high school, like you were just telling us beforehand, how you kind of got into maritime, learning about it, and then you know doing what you're doing now.
Yeah, man. So yeah, so I'm basically born and bred here in Durban. So that's where I grew up. So when I got into high school, to be honest, I've always wanted to be a pilot. I mean, that's an honest truth. But when I got into high school, I remember I wasn't so sure about my dream of becoming a pilot. So I started asking around about things that I could possibly do. So fortunately, in my high school, my high school had this subject called maritime economics. So when I was in grade 9, in middle school, so basically I had to choose as to which subjects am I going to take going forward. Because from grade 10, that's where students actually start choosing, different courses. So in grade 10, in grade 9, so I met this incredible woman. She's been in the industry also for years. She's done so many things, but she was my teacher back then. So she introduced me to this maritime economic subject. She was like, okay, well, I mean, because I told her that I wanted to be a pilot, but she was like, no, man, but there's something called maritime economics. I was like, what's that? She was like, no, it's a subject that is related to shipping, containers, ships, and all that. I was like, oh, okay, that sounds fantastic. Maybe I should, go that route you know. So then she was fortunately teaching the subject. So then I joined her class, and yeah, man. So I did maritime economics, physics, geography from grade 10 all the way until matric. So when I got into matric, I remember I was awarded the best maritime student certificate in matric. So
There you
that's
go.
when my love for maritime really started to develop, because that's when I actually realized that, you know what, I'm so in love with this subject. So then I applied for maritime studies at the university. So we've got a university called the Durban University of Technology here. So that's where I applied. So unfortunately, that year I didn't qualify. I remember it was 2009. Um, so I went there, and they said, "No, man, we can't take you because you don't reach our standards, in terms of points and all that." I remember, I think it was physics that I hadn't done well at that time. So because of physics, they said, "No, just go back and redo your physics, then come back to us." So I was so hurt. I remember I even cried. Man. It was so devastating. So then I went back to fix my physics. So my grades improved. Then I came back the following year. Then they accepted me. So I did my maritime studies diploma there, DUT, for 3 years. And, you know, surprisingly enough, also I was in the top three best students, like my in the whole department. So when I graduated, I was really, excited. And yeah, man. So after that, well, 2 years before graduation, a year before my graduation, we had to do like a 1 year work integrated learning experience, whereby you do your two years of studying, and then your last year, which is your third year, you have to go and do your experiential learning, so that you can get 3 years in total. So 2 years of studying and 1 year of experiential learning. So I went to MSc. That's where I did my sort of like a training or internship for a year. Like MSC's, I think you guys know it. I think it's the second biggest or busiest shipping company in the world right now. So I worked there as a ships agent for a year. It was a great experience. I remember I learned a lot from the company. It really taught me a lot. That's where I got to experience, coming on board the ship, speaking to captains face to face. I was doing a whole lot of stuff, helping captains to arrange for ISPS clearances here in South Africa for ships coming here. I was clearing ships in and out. It was so incredible. It was amazing. So after that experience, then I graduated. Then I did my BTech, because I've always wanted to. Oh, that's when I actually heard about Shanghai Maritime University. I heard it during my diploma studies. So when I heard of it, I was like, I would like to go to that university one day. Because I remember one of our lecturers back then, they showed us Shanghai Maritime University. We just watched videos of it. It was incredible. And I was like, you know what, one day I'm gonna go there. And funny enough, I applied after my BTech, and I got accepted, man. I was given a scholarship. Then back in 2017, I was in a flight to Shanghai. Then the rest is history.
Yeah, no, awesome experiences. And what made you wanted to start to become a teacher in the maritime space? Because that's how we met. Is because you were being an instructor at Sitingile, right? Sitingile School.
Yeah, Sitsangile High School. Yeah, basically, I remember when I was doing my work integrated learning at MSc, or with MSc, they offered me, because it was a 1 year experience. I mean, a 1 year contract. So I was given a 1 year contract at that time, because I was still a student. I just needed 1 year to be, so that I could be able to graduate. Um, so after finishing off that 1 year, I was offered another job opportunity at MSc. So they offered to extend my contract, but I was like, no, man, I'm not so happy, with the money that they were offering me. So the very same woman who introduced me to maritime at Sitsangile High School, she approached me, and she was like, Lindani, do you want a job? I'm resigning. I'm going to work somewhere else. So we've got no one to replace me here at Sitsangile. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'm keen, because I knew that if I go to Sitsangile, I'd be able to, further my studies, because I know as a teacher, you sort of do have a lot of time at hand to be able to do your other stuff, that will develop you. But also, on the other hand, it was so exciting for me because maritime economics is something that I was always passionate about. I wanted to teach young kids. I wanted to introduce more kids to this industry. So those were the two main reasons why I wanted to go back and teach. So when I went there to teach, then that's when I started to, learn further. And that's when I did my diploma, my BTech part-time. And so that I could be able to apply, qualify for my master's.
Yeah, awesome. Because honestly, and I already said it before, going to South Africa and even just being involved in the education part of it, it was it really opened my eyes, and I think it kind of introduced me to like maritime education, and like it got me way
Yeah,
more interested in it. So like ever since then, I've
yeah.
like this podcast is probably a direct reason because of that. Like we're interested in giving back to the maritime industry, and I think that all, for me at least, that all stems from my trip to South Africa. So yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I mean,
really?
it was a great experience for sure.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome, man. So I'm so glad that you got to you're exposed to such like things like maritime education at a high school level. Because I'm not too sure whether you guys in the US you do have like maritime related subjects in the high school level. I'm
They
not
so
quite
there's
sure of that.
very few. There's very few. There's actually one in Philadelphia. It's a charter school.
Yeah,
Yeah, but very like it's not like South Africa where it's like
yeah,
every school, almost every school, you can have that option. There's
yeah.
very few here in the U.S.
Oh, okay, okay. No, man, yeah, it is. It's yeah. I think it was such a good idea as well here, to actually have some of the high schools here in South Africa to have maritime economics because I know for a fact that most students don't really get to find out about maritime, until they reach maybe varsity level, and I think it's also very good to sort of like introduce these kind of subjects so that students can know as early as high school that there's something or there's a career called maritime, so that by the time they get to varsity, they would already have it at the back of their minds that there's something else that they can do instead of doing all the other so-called famous courses like your engineering, your whatever. So yeah, yeah, man.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. It's something that we definitely need more of in the U.S. and it's great to see how
Yeah,
successful it is
yeah,
in
yeah,
South
yeah,
Africa. It just
yeah,
adds so much to the industry, an industry that's so important to the economy, and a big
yeah,
issue people have is even to national security.
yeah,
I hope we see more
yeah,
of it in the U.S. In the future. Because a lot of
yeah.
people say
Hopefully.
they'll go to our school, Mass Maritime, just because it's a good state school or they know somebody who went there, and not maybe necessarily like they fall in love with the industry once they're there.
Yeah,
You know, they don't really
yeah,
know beforehand.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yo, yeah, no, it's yeah. As I said earlier on, that I think it's gonna be it's great to sort of introduce students at a high school level to this industry because I mean it's like as you said, it's the most important industry in the world. We do international trade, we trade, we exchange goods, but and all of that happens through the maritime industry. So without maritime industry, we wouldn't be able to communicate. We wouldn't be able to trade with each other as countries.
Yeah. So what's pivoting just like a little bit? What is the current situation in South Africa as far as just like COVID and like how are you doing over there? Like what's going on? Because I haven't really heard anything besides we're getting news about a new South African strain of a coronavirus and all this stuff. So yeah, just wondering because like are you going in because you're back as a lecturer at DUT, right? So are you
Yeah,
going
yeah.
into the office or are you all online and stuff like that?
Well, the situation here has been a bit difficult over the last few months. I remember we had like a hard lockdown back in March last year. So the country came to stand still. Everything was just shut down. The president just announced that we're not gonna be going to school, we're not gonna be going to work. So everything was just in a complete standstill because of the coronavirus. I think the virus had just arrived in SA, so the government tried to deal with it in that manner by introducing lockdown. So everything was on standstill for like 3 to 4 months, and then he opened again. I think around June last year. But it was just a gradual opening of things. So that's when now students started to go back to school. But obviously now instead of physical schooling, we started going to school online. So lectures were happening online mostly. I remember also when I went back in July, we were not really allowed to go to the office, so we were just working from home. We were doing lectures via Zoom, via Microsoft Teams. So it's been like this now for the last um, 3-4 months. So now in Feb, no, just in January this year, December last year, the president also introduced like a level 3 lockdown, because the lockdown is introduced into different levels. So we had like a level 5, which is like the complete shutdown. So as you go like backwards to level 4, that's where like things started to ease up. So if you and in level 3, that's whereby things are a bit not so stringent. That the lockdown has been lifted a bit. So we're currently in level 3 now. So even though things are not as yet back to normal, but the coronavirus is still pretty much around us. So we're trying to be multimodal. We're trying to deliver lectures online and a bit of physical on the side. Obviously also observing all the physical distancing and all of that. So the situation is also, well, it is not really bad as it used to be now. I think there is hope for an improvement. So as you guys know, I'm sure you must have heard that in South Africa we've got this new coronavirus variant, which is pretty much different to what other countries are experiencing right now. The one that you have or that we're experiencing is a bit fatal. I think it's deadly. I think it's the most deadliest, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So that's why the government has been very strict in trying to deal with it. The government has been trying to move swiftly in terms of trying to deal with it and yeah, man. So I think we're getting there because we've just received like a first batch of vaccine. I think we had like 1 million doses that had just landed here in SA. I think it was 2 weeks ago. So yeah, man. I think slowly
That's
but
good.
surely we're gonna
Yeah.
get there. Yeah.
But that leads me to another question, and because we were just talking about it before we signed on, and it's about like the data and like how internet access in South Africa, specifically in Durban, is very expensive, right? Like I remember we were there. Like, is that causing trouble with like the students in the high schools and also in college?
Yeah, that's pretty much has been one of our major problems in tertiary institutions, because I remember also with my students, when we first introduced this online learning, there were so many issues around data. I remember like last year when we first had our online classes, so students would complain about number one, the internet connectivity. Some would complain about data being expensive. Number one, some are coming from like the deep um, rural areas, so they'll be complaining about not being able to, like their internet coverage is very very poor and stuff like that. So it's been very challenging, I must say. And so, like, I know for a fact that my institution, which is DUT, now they started buying data. They started buying students' data now, because obviously students were complaining about the affordability. They're not being able to afford. So now that students are getting data from DUT, I think the situation has become a bit better now, because they don't really have to buy it from their own pockets. As you said, the data is a bit expensive from this side. So yeah, man. So I think the institutions have been very helpful from that perspective. That instead of letting students buy their own data, they have actually been buying data for students, which
Yeah.
has obviously made things a bit easy for students now.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, because it's something that here in the U.S. we take such for granted, like our Wi-Fi, like our ability to just connect all the time.
Yeah.
And I experienced that when I was in South Africa. I was just like, wow, like it's just way more expensive here. And it seems like it's all controlled by like one company, right? So they have a kind of a lock on that. So
Yeah. No, even though we've got like a few companies, but still data here. I mean, data prices. I don't know, they're a bit high as compared to, because I remember when I was in China, data was just like nothing.
yeah.
It was just so cheap, and I think Matt can attest to that. And but here things are a bit different. But yeah, I think we are getting there, because now government has also been very helpful in that regard. In terms of buying students' data, and so yeah.
Cool. Can you kind of go into maybe just as like a last topic, kind of go into what you're teaching your students at DUT, and like what, like are you doing more of like an intro to maritime kind of courses, or are these students that you have, are they like they're committed to they're doing the degree that you did, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. I'm teaching students that are doing this very same degree that I did at DUT, because I'm teaching. Well, in my time, the course was called Maritime Studies. It was just a Maritime Studies degree, but now it has since changed to be called Shipping and Logistics. So it's no longer called Maritime Studies; it's called Shipping and Logistics. So it's divided into two. You've got like the nautical side of it, and then we've got the shipping and logistics side of it. Okay. So if you're doing shipping and logistics, that's whereby you're pretty much doing your office-based work. You're not really studying about navigating a ship or steering a ship and all that, like your navigation side of it. So I'm basically lecturing supply chain, logistics to the undergrads, and then I'm lecturing logistics and supply chain management to the postgrad students, and then I'm also lecturing advanced diploma students as well, so I'm lecturing ship broking and chartering. Okay, so yeah, so I'm doing different modules for different levels of studying.
Very cool. Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
in. Ever since the last time we talked, I was still in school, but now I'm working in freight forwarding. So I'm doing exactly that: supply chain, shipping containers across the
Really
world. So yep.
fantastic,
Yeah, we're not.
fantastic.
I don't do too much. The trade lane that I work on is the Indian subcontinent. So
Yeah,
not doing too much out of Africa or South Africa, but yeah,
yeah,
Indian subcontinent to the U.S. It's I just started a few weeks ago, so I'm learning quite a lot.
fantastic, man. So happy for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
So
seems
I
like it
know
all
I
worked
also
out
did.
for everyone.
Yeah, yeah. It's really amazing. I'm so excited to to actually see that you guys are actually working and you're doing well. And yeah, it's a small world. When we first met, I never thought that we'll all be talking like this, and all being involved in the maritime space.
Yeah, I don't even think I could legally drink when we met. So I think times changed a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's important to stay in touch, and it's good to see you now as an educator and as a lecturer. I was sitting in class with you, and now I'm picturing you, in front of a class. It's great. Um, yeah,
Yeah, man, it's been an amazing journey. I remember when we first met in Shanghai. Yeah, it was just one of those moments whereby you're like, okay, well, maybe it's going to be very difficult to get to know this person. But I remember as time went by and we started coming close together and we started, vibing around, and it was really fun. We had a lot of so much fun, as much as we were studying, but also we got to have so much fun, and we learned a lot, I think, in China. And yeah, man, I'm really happy that I've got to I've gotten the opportunity to grow now, because I've just registered my PhD, and it's something that I've always wanted to do, to be a doctor one day. So fortunately, at DUT, if you want to further your studies, you can do that for free. As long as you're a lecturer there, so they just allow you to do it for free. So I'm looking forward to doing my PhD, and hopefully I'll finish it in record time.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. So yeah, we're almost out of time here on the Zoom. So it was great to see you, man. We'll keep staying in touch. Good luck
Yeah.
with your doctorate, and good luck with dadhood. I know you're expecting. That was a huge update. So yeah,
Yeah.
all the best. All the best to you. I'm glad life is good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Lindani,
man.
it's been great to see you. Thank you for joining us. Seriously, we'll have to stay in touch. I know we're at it on Facebook. I just added you on LinkedIn, so we'll have to keep each other updated. If you ever want me
Yeah, guys.
to come in and zoom into one of your classes, I'll learn something new.
No, for sure, Connor, man. Thank you very much, guys. I'm so happy that I got to do this with you guys, and I wish you all the best going forward with your podcast. I think what I've just started is so amazing, and I've never really seen a maritime podcast in my life. So this is a very first of its kind. So I'm really wishing you guys the best in everything.
Yeah, thank you. All right, well,
Yeah.
Have a good night.
have a good
All
night.
right.
We will talk soon.
Bye.
See ya.
All right. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Take care.